Greg, and you know, likewise, really glad to be here, and thanks for taking some time to really talk to us. You know, a little bit about myself. My background is in infrastructure as a service, mobility as a service. I've been working in some way, shape, or form around cloud for about 8 years. I guess that's a pretty long time, given that, you know, the cloud has really begun to really take shape in the last 3 or 4. You know, essentially what we do together with the Ativo group is we focus on creating a seamless experience for clients, and that's really what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how we're going to improve, you know, productivity and improve support aspects and how users experience the application. So a little bit about what we're going to get into. We're going to get into, you know, what is the cloud, right? So just to give a high-level overview for those of you who aren't, you know, so in-depth with that part of cloud technology. We're going to get into security, scalability, and speed, which are three S's that are very important, you know, when trying to define an experience, as well as system access, right? How your users access the cloud, how easy is it? Is it cumbersome, right? Support, which is the most important in my mind, you know, as far as how users feel and adopt that resource that's so powerful. And then we'll get into redundancy and licensing and other details around the product. I'm going to keep this as short as possible because I know your guys' time is very valuable. The most beneficial part of webinars that I do, you know, is around the Q&A, is the dialogue. So I'd like to reserve as much time as possible to have that dialogue with you and answer as many questions as possible. And as Greg had alluded to, any questions that you have during the presentation, please use the chat feature, and we'll get to that at the end. So the first piece is kind of, where is the cloud, right? So, you know, people ask me a lot. You know, they think it's up in the sky somewhere, right? Essentially, it's not, right? I mean, there are data centers that we manage across the country. One is in California, the other's in Denver, Colorado, and the other's in Philadelphia. And what we essentially do there is we have robust infrastructure built out with multiple redundancies of ISPs, internet service providers, of hardware, you know, SANs, servers, and the building is extremely secure. So as you see here in the picture, there's no name on the building. They're not going to, you know, go do any kind of marketing campaigns or TV commercials telling you where the data center is. These are buildings that are built for one reason and one reason only, to have a secure place, a viable place with extreme amounts of power and resources to host servers and client and company information. So, you know, that being said, what is a dedicated cloud, right? So we talked about the data centers and the servers sitting in that location with all the redundancy. But essentially what we do is called virtual private cloud computing, or dedicated cloud. So we don't necessarily give every client a physical server in our data center, but what we do is we use VMware to basically separate out those virtualized servers or virtualized machines for each company. And what that allows you to do is to get that same feel as you do with your on-prem server, have that customization to basically define your experience, define your feel within your environment. It also is going to allow us to build, you know, to spec your environment. So in a lot of, you know, public cloud offerings or SaaS-based offerings, you have to fit within a box. Not with us. You know, we take your current software that you have, that you've already invested in, have already made shape for your business, and we fit the back-end infrastructure and cloud resources to promote that and enhance that already, you know, invested in experience you have with your application. So we separate SQL servers. You'll have separate virtualized SQL servers, app servers, Active Directory servers. And most importantly, it's the most secure cloud experience available because, you know, we take very, very deep precautions around encryption and around separating out those virtual servers so that you have your own kind of, pool, if you will, to swim in. I like to use the analogy of a swimming pool. If you think of public cloud as just being kind of a free-for-all, everybody's just jumping in that pool and swimming around. Whereas, with a public or with a virtual private cloud, it's more you have lanes within that swimming pool, but they're not just ropes. These are, very physical concrete walls to make sure everybody stays in their own lane, and there's no risk of anybody leaking over into someone else's pool, right? It's also referred to as single tenant, and it's very different than the Amazon experience. What we do is we take a deeper approach to managing that environment, whereas if you go to an Amazon cloud or even to a Rackspace, there's certain levels of management that they take into effect, and essentially, you're left with kind of managing their infrastructure and their cloud, where we take that off your plate. I mean, essentially, we know that as a mid-sized business, that's probably 9 times out of 10 not a core viable, profit center for you as far as managing these resources. And we want to shift productivity into more strategic focuses, like how do we improve productivity within the application rather than how do we back up or push a patch out to a server, right? So what about redundancy? You heard me talk a little bit about this piece. So in our data center, we have complete redundancies for all equipment. So for every switch, every router, every SAN, every server, there is another. And if you get even granular onto that at the virtualization level, we have multiple clusters that we build for each customer's environment so that there's automatic failover and limited service interruption for those clients. On top of that, from an internet service provider coming in, we have 10 different internet service providers coming into our data centers. So if Verizon or if Comcast or if level 2 would go down, we have alternate feeds into our data center, along with power, which is a very extreme one. So multiple power feeds coming in with backup generators and then battery after that. So a lot of different levels of redundancy. The most important level of redundancy, though, is the geographic placement of these data centers. So we have built into our solution a fully fledged disaster recovery plan for our clients. So if you guys have been struggling with, coming up with a true business continuity or disaster recovery plan, this is basically a turnkey way to enter into those discussions and get a chunk of that plan really built. As well, in the next slide, it talks a little bit about the security. To feed into that DR piece, we have all the compliances built in to this solution. So the SSAE 16 SOC Type 2, Type 3, SAS 70 security standards, PCI, HIPAA compliance, that's all already baked in, and we can actually provide that to you in order to help architect that business continuity plan. We have 24/7 manned facilities, obviously, as well as 24/7 available help desk to make sure that your users are gaining support. And then we use different tools like Citrix, like different resources on the back end, but mainly the one we're going to talk about today is Citrix, that adds extreme amounts of security protocols into how you experience that application. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The other piece is the data encryption, right? So I mentioned, we have encryption around your environment in our data centers, but also take measures to encrypt that data that's in transit, right? That's going to your users as they connect into our data centers. That's very important. I think there's a statistic from Gartner that a good majority, I don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to throw one out, but a good majority of breaches and data leaks that happen while that data is in transit because there's not a secure tunnel or secure feed into the remote access to that server. So we think of all that for you to make sure that you focus on doing what your business is there to do, right? To generate profits around your service or your product. So another big feature around cloud computing and around our product in general is scalability. I talk a lot with clients, and you know, they're unable to really shift and move as they find new ways to improve business productivity at the app level because of investments they've made prior into hardware or into licensing. We base everything based on user access. So user-based pricing, it makes it very easy based on application consumption for hiring purposes, for how you're going to scale your company and grow. We can handle adding any additional hardware and resources to maintain your performance. So we're constantly monitoring and measuring where you stand with your environment. So if your environment needs additional RAM to perform better, we can within seconds spin that up without you even knowing it. So it's really proactive and on our end. And as far as, you know, seasonality companies who have high peaks of usage or even employees, this is extremely beneficial because you can not only scale up, but you can scale down too, and we can you know, customize a plan for that. We also take a lot of pride in really pushing out these test environments as well as dev environments for our customers while they're in our environment. So picture being able to essentially tap into an unlimited test and dev resource once you're looking to roll out new versions of your applications or upgrade to EM10, right? Being able to do that while not you know, interrupting anything in production with your current users, and get users trained on that environment, get users up to speed on all the nuances there. The other piece is around licensing, right? I mean, people all the time say to me, you know, look, this is a lot of money per month. I can buy a lot of servers with that, and that is true, but there's a lot of pieces that they don't think about, and one of them is licensing. So SQL Server licensing is pretty expensive, as is Microsoft Office, as is the different OS requirements. And as well, all of these dictate kind of your growth or scalability with your application. If you're on an older version of Macola today and running, let's say, a Windows Server 2003 environment, and you want to go to an upgrade to EM10, you're obviously going to have to make investments not only in a server but in licensing as well as in SQL Server licensing. Another big component is around speed. So the next couple slides we're going to talk about is Citrix, and that has a lot to play with, you know, our feasibility around speed, but it is very fast. So I have clients that have, you know, DSL T1 lines coming into their business. I don't recommend that, by the way, but they do. And, you know, they're experiencing a full production system with no problems because all of the compute power, the heavy resource burden is done in our data center. Really what's moving across is very light traffic, just images that are moving back and forth. So, you know, you're not moving these heavy burdens over your internet pipe back and forth from the data center. We've taken into account, and it's a constant improvement policy for us to find better ways to minimize, you know, the requirements on your end so that we can help, you know, supplement and build up those aspects of your business. It's a very thin browser client. So unlike traditional RDP or remote desktop protocol, that's a very heavy, thick client that moves big burdens across the WAN, the wide area network. And what we're doing, we're essentially just moving that light traffic, as I mentioned, and changing the entire workload of how cloud works and how that experience happens for your users. So the biggest piece, I think, around our cloud offering, aside from obviously the application knowledge, which we'll get to as well, is Citrix. So it gives us a ton of different options, one of which is how do you access your system. So we can deploy single apps or even a desktop. As well, we can actually deploy everything integrated within the user's device. So if you're on a PC and you want to go out to a web browser and just all you literally have to do is type in your unique domain name, that'll take you to a login screen. You type in your login credentials, and you can launch your Macola application in a browser window on any device. So it's completely integrated with the fabric of whatever OS you're using, whether it's a Mac, an iPad, whether that's a Android tablet or even a PC. So a lot of different options. As well, from a mobile experience, we have the ability to launch, it's what's called through Citrix Receiver, where you can actually just download an app from the App Store and launch a mobile experience that has different service packs built in specifically around mobile usage. So you're not sitting there trying to fat finger through a desktop or through a report. It has tools like actually right-click and a mouse button so that you can actually very, very finely point and click as to where you want to go. And as well, this is all completely up to you. We're not here to force your hand in any way. Our job is to put together a product and service set that fits your mode, that fits your business. So we present all the options and we build a customized plan for how we want to deploy that based on how you feel is best fit for your company. And then comes the other big piece that I get talked to a lot about, which is printing. Citrix handles a very large part of how we do printing. So essentially what it does is it automatically recognizes network drivers and automatically assigns that to that user session no matter what device they're on. So as long as they're connecting in to your network at your company, they're going to recognize those printers and be able to utilize them seamlessly. The same works from home. If you have a network printer at home and you log in from home and you're accessing all of your apps in your desktop, you're able to automatically recognize the printer at home. So it's very I guess, seamless with whatever device you're logging into or network you're logging into as well. The biggest advantages of Citrix, and this is kind of just going down bullet points, but it's obviously rapid scaling. So, we can launch new users in a matter of minutes. So before, where, if you would hire a new employee, you'd have to get them a desktop, maybe install Office, install access to the server, do all these things that could take hours, if not days, and cost time and a lot of money if you don't have the resources in-house. You can literally make a phone call, put in a new user request, and that user, within a few minutes, can have access to the applications that you want them to have access to. It's a single access across all platforms. So you're not struggling with, oh, I can use this Chromebook, but I can't use this Mac PC or this Mac computer. It's completely seamless across all those different OSs and platforms. As we mentioned, the low bandwidth resources needed. It's very light traffic. And then we mentioned as well the data encryption. So from a security aspect, it creates an SSL encrypted tunnel. So if I'm logging in from an iPad and I want to log into my Macola EM10 application, essentially what it's doing is it's creating a secure tunnel to the data center. And all of the compute power is done up in the cloud. None of the computing is done on the actual device. So, as far as wiping access or limiting exposure to data leakage coming to the actual device, you don't have to worry about that at all because that entire path is encrypted fully for you. And then as well, it's very easy to use. Users have a lot of good things to say about Citrix as far as the XenApp technology because of maybe experiences around already remote desktop or other remote connection technologies. Citrix really finely tunes the product and constantly is looking at ways to improve the experience of connecting in remotely. And that's one of our most strategic partners, and we're constantly doing updates to our environment to then pass those benefits on to you. But, it's one thing for us to say it, but we have a lot of Macola clients who are currently in our cloud. And this is just one thing that one of our clients have said. And, basically what they're saying is we do not want to be in the business of purchasing and managing servers, databases, and ancillary software. After having our exact Macola ERP hosted by TiVo for more than a year, we can say that it has been one of the best decisions we ever made. Essentially what they've done now is they've shifted their focus. Don Williams, who's their IT director, now is much more strategic and visionary in how they're going to develop different nuances around the application to improve overall business productivity. It's turned IT into a profit center for them and given them a way to very predictably budget and as well account for the IT spend from an operational standpoint. It's been very valuable to them. So that's the cloud, right? That's our product. I'm sure there's going to be some questions around that product. I know I kind of went through that very quickly, but the most important piece, I can't stress this enough, I've worked for infrastructure as a service companies that have no app knowledge, right, that don't understand the ERP business or the software business. And the most important piece is having a seamless experience, having a cloud vendor who understands the nuances of your application. The reason being, by having your app vendor, let's say Macola, you have a deep plethora of knowledge around the application, but not necessarily a deep plethora of knowledge around the infrastructure supporting it. So you probably have another infrastructure vendor or let's say another cloud vendor who in turn has a deep plethora of knowledge around infrastructure and how they're supporting that infrastructure, but not necessarily around the Macola application. I've seen it time and time again. What happens is there's this thing I call the gray area or the abyss. And essentially what happens is you as the customer call in and you say, I'm having this problem. And the app vendor is going to say, look, I think this is something to do with the cloud. I think you should talk to your other vendor. And you're going to call the cloud vendor, and the cloud vendor is going to say, look, I think this is an application issue. I think you need to talk to your app vendor. And before you know it, you're back and forth for hours just mediating this vendor relationship when it can be so much simpler if there was integrated efforts to really create a better experience for you. And that's what we have. We have a seamless full stack experience. Between Attivo Group and CompuData, we have 70 years of supporting ERP applications. So we understand the challenges that you face on a daily basis. Between our companies, we have well over 850 clients that are utilizing ERP applications. We completely understand your positioning and what you're looking for out of a support company. And that's what we've strived to do on a daily, weekly, hourly basis, is how do we improve that seamless experience. I mean, picture being able to literally have your infrastructure in a cloud environment with all that productivity, scalability, functionality, being able to predictably move and shape and mold your business how you see fit, and no longer is that a hindrance nor a risk in your business. And at the same time, that vendor has the ability to shape and mold and provide strategic advice around how you grow your applications, let alone just your infrastructure. That's what we're about. That's the Macola, the ultimate Macola experience in the cloud. There's some key benefits to this too. I mentioned test and dev environments, but a big topic around the Macola user groups today that I'm talking to is around this EM10. Is EM10 right for me? Is it my time to move to this new product? And the answer is different for everybody, right? I mean, I can't sit here and say it's right for everyone, but only you can answer that question. But if you're doing different data migrations, or if you're looking to do different software updates or add additional modules, the last thing you want to do or have be a factor in that decision is this going to interrupt my business? This is going to be such a hindrance on for a month or two because it's just going to completely interrupt everything that I'm doing. Well, picture being able to have, let's say, progression in the cloud while, in full production operating. You have that great experience with your app vendor, with the Attivo Group, and you're able to basically integrate and have that integrated, seamless experience for your application. But you say, you know what, I want to move to EM10. Well, picture being able to spin up that environment beside the progression environment, be able to launch out and basically implement that solution, and then get your users accustomed to it, rather than just cutting over production heavy on one side, being able to say, look, we're going to give this in digestible bites so that it's adopted the right way, so I don't have any kind of backlog or hard cuts in production, I want to be able to make sure and make sure that we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and that's what we can provide to you. We understand kind of those challenges along the way. So I tried to keep it as short as possible. It looks like I landed right on a half hour, but I'd like to open it up for Q&A. I know that was a lot. You know, I'm always available to jump on calls one-on-one too, but if you could, Greg, could you open up the lines and see if we have any questions?
Yeah, we'll open up the phone lines, and we also did get a couple questions that came in over the chat. Everyone's phone line should be off of mute now. If you don't have any questions, if you just self-mute your phone so we don't pick up any of the background noise. One of the questions that we got kind of relates to security. I know that you touched, Tyler, on how the cloud can be accessed basically from any mobile device, but the question was regarding, you know, how secure would that connection be if, say, like a salesperson was out in the field trying to access the application on an iPad while they're out on a sales call. You know, what's the security, are there any security risks trying to access over a mobile device?
No, and that's a great point, very great point. So the answer would be no. There are no security risks because nothing is living on that iPad. Everything is living still in the data center. All the iPad is acting as is a gateway to the data center, to your applications and data. And because of using Citrix to connect in, that entire connection from that iPad to the data center is 100% secure. As long as you have an internet connection, or even, you know, if you have an iPad that's mobilely enabled, you know, through an LTE network, you can connect in securely to that data center and access, you know, your full available applications and data.
Okay, another question going into the support aspect that we covered a little bit is this individuals, they're happy with their support partner, their reseller, thinking about moving into the cloud. How would that work as far as like who would be the point of contact? Let's say they're running into some technical difficulty. Would the point of contact be their support partner, or would it be CompuData? Like, how would that work?
No, absolutely. So if you have an application vendor that you're extremely happy with, which happens all the time, essentially I like to go from the top down. So the one thing that Macola partner has that we'll never be able to catch up to is they have an extreme amount of knowledge around your business, and they're adding a ton of value to your business today. We're not here to interrupt that at all. We want to enhance it. So by having a cloud provider who can add to the equation that your app vendor has already and add additional knowledge or supplement knowledge they have or don't have, it's just going to be a better solution for you. Most times what happens is we would build a direct relationship with your app vendor. So most times, you know, if you have a support issue, you would call your app vendor, and you know the app vendor and Ativo group would work together to help solve that problem for you. You're always welcome to call us. We're not here to tell you to not call the Ativo group at any time. But, you know, we want to customize, like we said, that feel, that approach for you and whatever you feel comfortable with. We're here just to make sure that you're not on the phone back and forth getting that finger-pointing experience. You know, we can handle it all for you. But if you have a vendor that you see a lot of value in, which we see all the time, and I know there's a ton of them out there, we want to help that vendor and help that vendor help you essentially and build a better product and experience for you.
And then the last question we got via chat, and you touched on this also when you were talking about the licensing, but who is responsible for the software updates? And I know, and Tyler, I'll let you take this, but I know that there's some that kind of fall on CompuData or Ativo, and then there's some that would still be the responsibility of the actual user. But if you could maybe flesh that out a little bit, who kind of handles what?
Sure. So I did hit on it a little bit, and I don't think it's a great question because I don't think I mentioned it. So everything revolving the application of Macola, right? We take what you have today, and we can move that to the cloud. So all of those nuances, right, the maintenance and support you pay for Macola, as well as any kind of updates you ever want to do to Macola, that would be done through your app vendor or through Ativo Group, and we can always help you there. But that's kind of separate from here. Everything below that, the SQL Server licensing, the Microsoft OS, the Microsoft Office versions, the Citrix licensing, VMware licensing, that's all taken care of by us and 100% burstable. If you're on SQL 2008 today in our cloud and you want to go to SQL 2012, we do that for you at no cost, that entire upgrade. So, you know, it's completely burstable. You never have to pay for that licensing again to get on the new version.
So to be clear then, the SQL Server, Firewall, Microsoft Office, all that is basically built into the monthly subscription cost.
Absolutely, because we're Microsoft, Citrix, VMware certified partners, and that's part of, you know, our service provider licensing agreement. Absolutely.
Well, those were our chat questions. I know we still have a handful of people still on the call, so I'm just going to give people a chance, if they have a question, to don't be shy, speak up. And if we don't have any more questions, then we'll go ahead and conclude, but I just want to give a minute or two here for anyone who wants to shout something out to go for it. Looks like we have a shy audience today.
I must have done a good job.
I guess so. I guess so. People, people tend to prefer the chat anyway. Well, hey, then I guess if we don't have any further questions, I want to again thank everyone who joined us on the call today. Really great questions. I want to thank Tyler so much for joining us today and doing the presentation, taking some time out of his busy schedule. As you can see, we've left the Q&A slide up. If at any point in time you have questions or you want to follow up, please feel free to, give us a call here at the Ativo Group or shoot Len or Tyler an email. You can also email me. It's Greg, G-R-E-G, at ativoconsulting.com. And with that said, thanks again, Tyler, and we're going to go ahead and wrap things up.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Everyone have a great day. Take care.